Okay, so we'll do this continuity and differentiability. We have already done a lot of limits. Okay, so limits part should be fine for you guys. I'm hoping. Uh, have they started calculus in your maths class?
For us, we started relations last class.
Yeah, for us also.
Okay,
We have a
okay,
second class today.
fine. So you already have your books, no? Allen books for limits and all.
Yeah.
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 So limits you should already start doing. Limits and functions you should already be doing from your Allen book. Okay. So all of that is done. So you should actually attempt the questions. And if you have doubts and all, you can get it sorted. Uh, we will do continuity and differentiability. So basically, these are conceptual ideas that are very useful. So we'll start off with continuity first. And continuity basically is defined at a point and over an interval. So two types of continuities we'll think about. So sorry, continuity at a point, right? So what is the meaning of continuity? So if you think about it from a lay person's perspective, continuity basically means that the graph can be drawn without lifting your pen.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't have to break off at any point. So it is not like this. This is not a continuous graph because you have to lift your pen here and draw it from here again, right?
Right. Yeah.
Similarly, this is a continuous graph. So how do we define it mathematically? So mathematically, what you say is a function is continuous if and only if these conditions are satisfied. Continuous at a point, say the point is x is equal to c, let's say. So function will be continuous at a point if limit of x tends to c fx exists. And second, if limit of x tends to c fx is equal to the value of the function at c. Okay. So what is the meaning of this statement? The first statement. So the first statement basically means that left hand limit and right hand limit must be equal, right?
Right. Yeah.
Then only you can say that at c function has a limit. And the second statement means that the value of that limit must be equal to the value of the function, right? So you should realize that f of c has nothing to do with the limiting value of the function near c, right? Because you can say examples like this are very common where some function is like this is g, suppose mod x function, but at 0 it is defined to be 2, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So this function is defined like this, mod x if x is not equal to 0 and 2 if x is equal to 0, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now in this function you can say very easily that limit x tends to 0 f of x is 0, and this has nothing to do with the value of the function at 0, which is 2, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct, because left hand tendency and right hand tendency is towards 0,
Right. Yeah.
right? So this function is an example of a discontinuous function, and it is discontinuous because the second condition is not true, that limit x tends to 0 f of x is not equal to f of 0, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The first condition is valid here, limit exists, but the limit is not equal to f of 0, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically continuity at a point, you just need to ensure, for continuity at a point, you need to ensure that limit of x tends to c f of x should be equal to f of c, right? So how do we do continuity over an interval, for example? No, like suppose you have a function and you want to check its continuity over the interval 1 to 2, right? this closed interval. So if you have to do that, what you have to do basically continuity over an interval is just continuity at all the points inside that interval. Continuity at all the points inside that interval. So basically, technically what you have to do, if you have to verify that the function is continuous over the interval, you have to take all the points here and check every point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously you will not do that like by hand. What you will do is take any general point inside and see whether any general random point is continuous or not, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if that point has no special conditions in that sense, in the sense that you can represent all the points in that interval by that general point, then you can ensure that if it's continuous there, then it will be continuous everywhere on that interval, right?
Yeah.
So what about if someone asks you, what about continuity at some end point? Like suppose 1 to 2 was there and you have to figure out whether the function is continuous at 2. Fx is continuous at 2 or not. So sometimes what happens is the function could only be defined in 1 to 2, right? It is possible that you can get a function like, for example, fx is equal to minus of x square minus 3x plus 2, right? This function, if it was plus, I would have said x should be greater than 2 or x should be less than 1, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So because I have put a minus sign, now that means that you have to be inside this interval, no?
Correct. Yeah.
So it is minus x square plus 3x minus 2, right? This function.
Correct.
This function is only defined between 1 to 2, right?
Right.
Now if someone asks you continuity at 2 for this function, at x is equal to 2, whether it is continuous or not, right? So technically you cannot go to the right side of 2, no? That is not even allowed in the domain of the function, right?
Yeah.
So you can only go from the left side, right?
Right.
So our normal continuity definition is limit x tends to c f of x exists and the limit should be equal to the value of the function, right?
Right. Yeah.
But in this particular case, because it is an end point, this limit x tends to c exists will not work because the right hand limit cannot be taken.
Right. Yeah.
So in case of endpoints, the definition is changed a little bit and you define it like this. For this type of endpoint, you will define x tends to c minus f of x exists. And you will say limit x tends to c minus f of x should be equal to f of c, right? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In this case, you cannot write the full limit, right? Because right hand limit is not possible. So the function will be called to be continuous at 2 if left hand limit exists and left hand limit is equal to value of the function.
Yeah.
Correct? So left hand limit exists. That means basically it is not becoming infinite or undefined or something. Right? So it is not becoming like that. And as you come to from c minus side, f of x should be equal to the value of f of c, right? In case you were thinking about continuity at 1, then I would have said limit of x tends to c plus f of x should be equal to f of c, right?
Right. Yeah.
In that case, I will not talk about the left hand limit. I'll talk about right hand limit only, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because function is only defined from that side. So basically, this is the understanding of continuity that you need to have. Sometimes you need to be careful about the endpoints because both sided limits are not possible there. But normal regular points, you need to ensure that left hand limit is equal to right hand limit and is equal to the value of the function there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, now there are sometimes situations when functions are obviously discontinuous, and there are some names for types of discontinuities. So we will just quickly do it. It's not very difficult at all. So functions are discontinuous in multiple ways. So you could have something called a removable discontinuity. Removable discontinuity. So what is a removable discontinuity? This is a discontinuity that you can sort of work around or make the function continuous by redefining it. Okay. So for example, if limit x tends to c f of x exists but is not equal to f of c, correct?
Mhm.
Then clearly the function is discontinuous, right?
Right, yeah.
So this is called removable discontinuity, because what you can do is you can modify the function slightly, modify the function to ensure that it becomes continuous. That it becomes continuous. How will you modify? You'll just change the value of f of c, right?
Yeah.
How can we change a value like that?
We can't. We are just saying that the function can be changed and made to be continuous, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
like that,
yeah.
yeah.
We can't really. This is not a real thing, but I mean, this is sort of a fake thing in the sense that you're changing the function, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
But at least you can change and make it continuous somehow, right? Without twisting the definition of the base function so much. So what you have to do is change the value of 1 point. You have to change the definition, right? F of c you can make somehow equal to limit of x tends to c of f of x, right?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So the function is something like this, for example, the same function that we saw earlier, this one, right? Now, this function f of x is not continuous at 0 because of this value at 2, right? Value at
Yeah.
0.
Right, yeah.
So what I can say is I will change the function and create a new function gx, which is almost the same, but it is not like it for all, basically for all x, right?
Yeah.
At x is equal to 0, you have changed the value of the function to 0, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
this gx has become a continuous version of f of x,
Yeah.
right? So basically you can remove the discontinuity by changing the function itself. So in that sense it is weird because ultimately you're changing the function, but you can say that this is removable discontinuity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A non-removable discontinuity will be of the form when the limit itself does not exist.
So can you explain again how gx and fx are similar?
Gx and fx are not similar. Gx is the function version
Like the
of fx
Yeah.
which is continuous, because gx doesn't have the 2 value, no, at 0.
But in that case, the function does not remain the same, right?
It does not remain the same, but you have removed the discontinuity.
Okay.
Earlier function was discontinuous because of the value of the function not matching the limit, but now you have changed the value of the function at that point, and now the new function is a continuous version of it.
Yeah, got it, got it.
It's just a name, dude. You don't have to worry about it so much. It's just a name to say that it is a removable discontinuity if you can do something to change it and make it continuous. It is a non-removable discontinuity if limit only doesn't exist.
Right.
If limit x tends to c f of x does not exist, then you cannot change just a constant value and make it continuous,
Yeah.
because the function doesn't tend to the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Then making it continuous would have been basically changing the entire definition only, right? It is not like 1 point value I can change here and make it continuous, right? You understand if the graph was like this?
Yeah, yeah.
The problem with this is that the limit here is not the same, right? So
Yeah.
Correct.
any one point value you cannot change and make it continuous. What you will have to do is change it for everything. You will have to change the function definition only, right?
Hmm.
So you will have to
Got it.
make modifications to infinite points here, no? Then
Yeah.
here you are modifying only one point. So this is called a non-removable discontinuity. Non-removable discontinuity happens when basically the function only has to be changed, right? The
Yeah.
limit does not
Right.
exist. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Then there are more cases that you can define. Those are just, so for example, in the removable discontinuity type, you can define multiple types. You can say it is a missing point discontinuity. You don't need to memorize any of this. You just need to sort of understand what they're saying. Missing point discontinuity basically is
So I can't define.
f of a is not defined. Like one value is not defined only, and that value is the point where you're discontinuous, right?
Yeah.
So for example, f of x can be written as, say, 1 minus x, 9 minus x square by 1 minus x, right? Now, this function, this definition of the function is not defined at x is equal to 1, no? Correct?
Yeah.
Similarly, function f of x is equal to sine x by x is not defined at 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the point is that limit exists here. Limit is 0, right? Limit is 1.
1.
Limit is 1 here, but f of 0 is not defined, no? Correct?
Yeah.
Limit exists, but f of 0 is not defined. So the point itself is missing. That is a missing point discontinuity. So what you can do to correct such a discontinuity is just create a new function which says gx is equal to sine x by x for x not equal to 0 and 1 for x is equal to 0, right? Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a basically same function, but one point you have modified, right? And you have added a missing point here, right? You understand that we have removed the discontinuity right now,
Right.
Yeah.
correct? No. So
Yeah.
that is a removable discontinuity, which is a missing point discontinuity. Okay. The other type we already discussed. The other type was isolated point discontinuity. Isolated point discontinuity. This was when limit was existing. Limit exists. F of a exists, but they are not equal. But limit is not equal to f of a, right?
Yeah.
This is the one that we were talking about earlier.
Right. Yeah.
And you can change it by changing the value of one point in the function, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the other case that we have not discussed yet, right? Where
Yeah.
the function is not defined at that point. So similarly, you can have non-removable discontinuities also can be given some names and all. So non-removable discontinuity can be, for example, finite discontinuity. Finite discontinuity, I'll give an example. So for example, fx is equal to x minus gif of x at all integral values of x, right? Correct. So at all integral values of x, you will see that the limit does not exist, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the GIF function will be like this,
Stepwise.
right? So you will see that from this side you're approaching 0 and from this side you're approaching 1, right? So the limit only does not exist, and this is called a finite discontinuity because there is a finite jump here, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you cannot do anything to this function to make it continuous without drastically changing the function itself, right? Like
right, yeah,
any one point value will not correct it, no?
Yeah.
So this is a non-removable discontinuity of the finite type. You can also find an infinite discontinuity in the form infinite discontinuity when, for example, you take a function fx is equal to say 1 by x minus 4, right?
Yeah.
This function, if you look at a near x tends to 4, right? So this is a hyperbola type of function, right?
Mm.
So near x is equal to 4, it will behave weirdly. So basically, you will get something like this, right?
Yeah.
Just above 4, it will be plus infinity. Just below 4, it will be minus infinity,
Minus.
right? So you'll get a hyperbola like this. And clearly, there is an infinite discontinuity here. So limit does not exist at this point, right?
yeah, yeah,
You cannot do anything about it now. You cannot correct it somehow, right?
Yeah.
Because limit only does not exist, and the discontinuity is called infinite because it is tending to infinite on both sides, right?
Right.
right,
Here
yeah,
you are tending to finite values, right?
Yeah.
So that is one case. There is also a situation when you have an oscillatory discontinuity. Oscillatory discontinuity is the case when you have functions like sine of 1 by x, right? Near x tends to 0. Now, the problem that happens with this function is that sin x starts oscillating very rapidly near this because the argument is infinite.
Mm.
If you try to plot the graph of this sine 1 by x function, you can use it on Desmos and all. You can try to plot the graph actually, okay? And what you will see is as you come closer and closer to 0, this 1 by x becomes very large, right?
Yeah.
And because 1 by x becomes very large, sine has a period of only 2 pi, right?
right, yeah, yeah,
So if you have sine 1000, then you have to vibrate a lot, no?
Yeah.
You will have to cover the 2 pi so many times in 1000, no?
Yeah.
correct, yeah, yeah,
So basically, you will have to vibrate a lot. And if you are getting close and close to 0, this vibration is infinitely dense. Okay. So what happens is you cannot say at any given point, where should my graph be?
Yeah.
So it can be anywhere between -1 and 1, right?
right, yeah,
So technically, there is no limit as x tends to 0 here. Limit x tends to 0, sine 1 by x does not exist.
Yeah.
Because you cannot specify where it is going to be in -1 to 1. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, then the graph will be discontinuous because limit only does not exist near 0. Right?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So basically, these are the things that you need to know about discontinuity. Now, there is one thing that we need to discuss which is related to continuity, which is the intermediate value theorem. Intermediate value theorem. So intermediate value theorem is actually very straightforward. It says that if a function is continuous over some interval, right? Interval is, let's say, a to b, over an interval a to b, right? Then the function will take all values between f of a to f of b. So what does it mean? It is saying a very obvious thing. It is saying that if a and b are, this is in an interval, right? And suppose you have some function like this, right? Now, whatever is the value of f of a, let's say here, right? And whatever is the value of f of b, let's say here. Now, if you have gone from a to b, basically, and the function was continuous, right?
Yeah.
Then
yeah,
you have covered everything from here to here, right?
right, yeah,
Yeah.
So there will be a C somewhere here. Any value between f of a and f of b, there will be some value of C where it will touch that value, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand? Basically, it is saying that it cannot jump between a to b by skipping any value, right?
Right.
Because the function is continuous, its graph will be smooth, so it cannot skip anything in between.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like any particular level that you want in between f of a and f of b, there will definitely be a C in that interval where function will take that level,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Is everyone understanding?
Yeah.
So this is very useful. This is useful in theory of equations because we know that all polynomial functions are continuous. Okay. So all polynomials Px are continuous functions, right?
Right.
Now that can be proved very easily. You can just take the limit in polynomials. There is no restriction, so limit is defined at all points, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in polynomials, it will be an algebraic expression like this, no? So there is no problem of getting limits and all, right? Correct.
Yeah.
So since limit is defined and value of the function is the same, so it is always continuous, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is everyone following what I'm saying?
Like, can you repeat the part
Yes,
A
where?
polynomial will always be continuous because polynomial definition is like this, no? An into x power n plus an minus 1 x power n, an minus
Right.
1 and all are constants.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So right now, is there any problem? You can take limit by directly putting value, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
There is no
Right.
restriction in the sense that 1 by x or nothing weird is happening here,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So polynomials limit will always be defined and limit will always be equal to the value of the function.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yes. Yeah.
polynomials are always continuous. And because polynomials are always continuous, now what you can do is you can always apply intermediate value theorem. So that has very good applications because now you can say that if you ever get a value of p of a, let's say, was negative, right? And p of b, let's say, was positive, right?
Yeah.
So then if it is negative this side and positive this side, then it must cross zero somewhere, no, in between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you can always say that there will be a root between a to b of this polynomial. There exists a root between a to b, at least
Yeah.
one root,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a consequence of intermediate value theorem only, because what we are saying is that there is a continuous function such that at a, the value of the function was negative, right? Let's say
Right.
somewhere here. But at
Yeah.
b, the value of the function was positive somewhere here, right?
Right.
And because it is continuous, it has to take all values between this and this, right?
Yeah.
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 So it
Yeah.
must have taken the zero value between somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere at C, it must have attained zero value. It cannot skip the zero value.
Zero. Yeah.
So that is a consequence of your intermediate value theorem. It can be like this. It can also be like this. It can also be multiple times there, no?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what we can say is if P of A is negative and P of B is positive, then there is at least one or an odd number of roots, right? Or an odd number of roots
Yeah. Yeah.
between A to B.
Yeah.
And if P of A and P of B are both positive or both negative, right? Then there is either zero or an even number of roots
Yeah.
between A and B.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Are you understanding?
Yeah.
Roots between A and B. Because even number, because if you have to come back to the same side, then you can either not even cross once also, or you can cross once and come back, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Two roots, right?
2, yeah.
Either 2 roots or 0 roots or 4 roots or 6 roots, right?
Yeah.
So that is a consequence of intermediate value theorem for a continuous function, right?
Yeah.
So that is something that you should know. Then there are a couple of points that are interesting. So let me just list them out. So first thing is, if fx is continuous, okay, these are important, so you should either note it down or make sure that you come back to this video later. If fx is continuous and gx is discontinuous at x is equal to a, then the product function, product phi x is equal to fx into gx, is not necessarily discontinuous at x is equal to a. It is not compulsory that it has to be discontinuous at x is equal to a, and we can prove it by an example. Like there could be cases when it is discontinuous and there could be cases when it is still continuous. Okay, so fx is equal to x and gx is equal to, let's say, sine pi by x for x not equal to 0 and 0 for x equal to 0, right?
Right.
So if you look at this function, this is clearly continuous function
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
x
Yeah.
is equal to 0, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
this is clearly discontinuous function because of the oscillatory nature of this.
Yeah.
The limit only doesn't exist at 0,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
However, when you do fx into gx, right, phi x is becoming x sine pi by x, right? Now this is for x not equal to 0 and it is equal to 0 for x is equal to 0, right?
Yeah.
Now think about this, limit of x tends to 0 of this exists actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like limit x tends to 0 of that is easy to find. It is sine pi by x by 1 by x, right?
Right.
So
right.
multiply pi here and multiply pi here, right? Correct. Actually, that is not necessary also, because x will multiply and make it 0, right? What you can say here is that this limit is 0, dude. Why? Because this value will be less than equal to -1 to 1, right?
Yeah.
And this value is tending to infinity,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you can just say that sine pi by x will be something between -1 to 1 and x is tending to 0, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
By squeeze theorem, we have earlier done this, no?
Hmm. Yeah.
You understand? You can say that x sine pi by x you will always satisfy the inequality this and this, right?
Yeah.
Correct? So this tends to 0, this tends to 0, so this tends to 0. Makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the function phi x, which is the product of these two, definitely has a limit which is 0 and therefore it is continuous, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
While gx was discontinuous, even then product is becoming continuous. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so this is important to know that it is not compulsory that if one of them is discontinuous, the whole product has to be discontinuous, right?
Right. Yeah.
Correct. So this is the first
Yeah.
point. Just make a note of this and this example. Like I hope you have written it somewhere.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second point is, suppose now fx and gx are both discontinuous, right? Both discontinuous at x is equal to a. Now, then also it is not necessary that product is discontinuous. So we'll construct an example for that also. Is still not necessarily discontinuous. So example for this is, let's say fx is equal to 1 and -1 for x is greater than equal to 0 and x is less than 0, and gx is equal to -1 and 1 for x is greater than equal to 0 and x is less than 0, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
these are clearly discontinuous functions, no? Because look at the function graph, it is like this and like this,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. Right, yeah.
Right? This is f of
Hmm,
x,
hmm. Yeah.
and the g f of x function is opposite of that, right?
Right, yes, yeah.
Right. Right.
Right? G of x. These are clearly discontinuous functions. Now the problem is that fx into gx phi x is nice actually, because it becomes -1 everywhere,
Yeah.
right? Correct.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
So phi x is a constant function which is continuous.
Yeah.
Continuous for all values, while this was discontinuous at 0.
Yeah.
Both these functions were discontinuous at 0, but the product has become continuous, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Okay. Then the third point is, if f is continuous at x is equal to c, and
Could you show that previous example again? I'll just take a picture of it. I missed the example, noting down the example. Yeah, done.
okay, if f is continuous at x is equal to c and g is continuous, g function is continuous at f of c, right? Then you can say that composite g of f of x is continuous at x is equal to c. So this is important to know. When can you say that a composite function is continuous at a point, right? So what has to happen is g function has to be continuous at this input, right? F of c,
Yeah.
and f function has to be continuous at c, right?
Right, yeah.
So both conditions have to be true. So for example, let fx be sin x sin x by x square plus 2, and let's say gx is equal to mod x. Now at x is equal to 0, you have to find out continuity of g of f of x, okay? So first of all, check whether fx is continuous at x is equal to 0. Fx limit of x tends to 0, fx should be equal to f of 0, right? Now f of 0 here is 0, right?
Yeah.
So x tends to 0 of this should be 0. So how do we do this? The easiest way to do this is by series expansion limit of this, because what you can say is x sin x is x minus x cubed by 3, right? Something like this. X minus x cubed by 3 plus x5 by 5.
If you're checking the limit at x is equal to 0, then it's either way not an indeterminate form. It's
It is
simply
anyway
0 because
directly
it's
0. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is no need to worry about anything. You can directly put 0, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is 0. So we have that function f of x is continuous at 0. Now f of 0 is 0. So you have to check g of x continuity at f of 0, right?
Right,
So
yeah.
therefore g of 0 and this function is continuous at 0. This is mod x, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mod x function is like this. It is continuous at 0. So now you can say that the combined function will be continuous at x is equal to 0. Okay. So that is something that you should be aware of. I mean, don't take, if it's a composition, no, don't take it for granted that it will be continuous just because one part is true. Both has to happen. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then fourth thing to note here is a continuous function. A continuous function whose domain is closed, whose domain is a closed range, is closed, must have a range also in a closed interval. A range also in a closed interval. Like, quite straightforward. It is saying that if the domain is between A to B, right, for a function, and if it is continuous, right, then
Yeah,
there will be some f of
Yeah.
A and some f of B. Some f of B, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
So the range also has to be closed because you cannot suddenly have infinite values or anything here.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it is continuous over the whole interval, because if the function was becoming infinite, then it is not in the domain technically, right? Infinite is not a real value, okay? So
yeah, yeah.
function doesn't become infinite at normal points when it is in the domain, right? So
Yeah.
so if the domain is closed, then the range also must be closed. For example, if you take tan x function, domain is not closed at pi by 2. Tan x function, you exclude pi by 2 points, right?
Yeah.
Like you say real, all real minus this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You cannot say that it is closed domain, no, because at pi by 2 it blows up, it becomes
Infinity.
infinite and all,
Right, right.
right?
Yeah.
So as long as you have a continuous function and a closed domain, then the range will also be in a fixed closed interval.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's about it for continuity. Now what we need to do is basically understand what is differentiability. Uh, so differentiability also basics we have discussed earlier also. So I'll just quickly think about what is differentiability at a point. So what is the meaning of this differentiability? Differentiability basically stands for being able to take a derivative, right? Derivative should be possible, right? That is the meaning of differentiability. So we know from our earlier discussions that derivative means, a derivative basically means slope of the tangent to the curve, right?
Yeah.
Slope of tangent to the curve at a particular point, at that point. So when can we say that slope of tangent to the curve at a particular point exists or is defined? We can say that when near that point, the curve has only one particular value of the slope, unique value of slope of tangent. Like it will be a problem if you have two competing values from which to decide the slope, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like for example, let's think about the function mod x, right? Now you cannot really in good faith draw a tangent at 0, because which side should you draw the tangent?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how to draw the tangent. From this side, the tangent has this line, and from this side, the tangent is this line, right? The problem is that slope of tangent here is -1 and slope of tangent here is +1 from this side.
Yeah.
So I cannot pick any particular value of the slope at 0, right?
Yeah.
However, if the curve was y is equal to x square, from both sides, the tangent is becoming the same line,
Right, yeah.
and the value of the slope was constant. Value of slope is 0 here, right?
Yeah.
So here there is only a unique value of the slope of tangent, and here there is a conflict because there are two competing values, right?
Right.
So basically that is the difference between a function being differentiable and a function being non-differentiable at a point. So
Yeah.
basically what it means is that there should be one unique value for the slope of the tangent to the curve, whether you come from the left hand side or come from the right hand side. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. So now when you try to define it mathematically, what we will say is, let's say there is a curve like this, and let's say this is my point A, right? And what we will do is we'll take 2 points. One point is slightly ahead. This point is A plus H, f of A plus H, right? And one point is slightly behind. This point is A minus H, f of A minus H, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what I have to say is that the function has a derivative at A if slope from this side is same as slope from this side, right?
Yeah.
This side slope between these 2 points should match this side slope between these 2 points in the limit h tends to 0. Correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
See, right now I have drawn it by chords, right? Chords is the case when the points are a little far apart. But when you take limit h tends to 0, this chord becomes a tangent. No?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So find the slope of the chord here. That is your right hand derivative of the function. If you do limit h tends to 0, slope of the chord. Slope of the chord will be f of a plus h, and this point is actually a comma f of a, right? Minus
Yeah.
f of a by a plus h minus a, right?
Yeah.
So this is my limit h tends to 0, f of a plus h minus f of a by h. This is called the right hand derivative of the function. Correct? Basically, how have we gotten it? We are saying slope of the chord, but bring the point really close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it becomes slope of the tangent from the right side. Correct?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Right.
this will be my left hand derivative. So left hand derivative is also by same method. You have to do limit h tends to 0, but now take slope of this chord, right? So it will
Yeah.
be f of a minus f of a minus h by a minus h, right?
Right. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So this is becoming limit of h tends to 0, f of a minus f of a minus h by h, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah.
LHD is basically defined as the limit h tends to 0, f of a minus f of a minus h by h, and RHD is defined like this, right? And
Yeah.
derivative exists if LHD is equal to RHD. Then function is differentiable at that a point. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So make sure that you are able to see visually why this is left hand derivative, this is right hand derivative, and what is the meaning of differentiability. Differentiability means left hand derivative is equal to right hand derivative at that point, right?
Right. Yeah.
And don't try to mug up the form. Okay, this form don't try to memorize, just see from the figure, right?
Yeah.
We are just taking slope between this and this, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
don't be confused by sometimes in books they will write f of a minus h minus f of a by minus h and stuff. Doesn't make a difference. And don't try to mug it up or anything.
Yeah.
What it means is simple only. 2-point slope here, take limit h tends to 0. 2-point slope here, take limit h tends to 0, right?
Right.
And these are the 3 points that you have to draw to understand derivatives. So if LHD is equal to RHD, the function is differentiable at that x is equal to a. If not, it is not differentiable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now there are some interesting consequences here. First thing to note here is if f dash of a exists, Basically what this means is fx is differentiable at a, then fx has to be continuous at x is equal to a. If the function you have proved is differentiable, then it is guaranteed to be continuous. Okay. But the opposite is not true. But the converse is not true. So it is possible for a function obviously to be continuous but not differentiable. So basically fx can be continuous and non-differentiable, but non-differentiable. But it cannot be differentiable and discontinuous.
Yeah, yeah.
So the easiest example is mod x, right?
Yeah.
Continuous but not differentiable at 0,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
right? But it is impossible for something to be differentiable and discontinuous.
Yeah.
So how do we prove that? So we can prove the first part of the statement, that if this exists, then function is continuous. So you can say that if, since f dash x is basically limit of h tends to 0, f of x plus h minus f of x by h, right? Why are we saying this? Because we are saying that f dash x means derivative at x, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Derivative at x means x is this point, so f of x is here, so nearby point will be x plus h comma f of x plus h, right?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this side point will be x minus h comma f of x minus h. So when someone says limit like this, what they mean is they are doing both sides at once. Okay,
Yeah.
they are not showing you the LHD and the RHD separately. They are just saying that limit as h tends to 0 from whichever side, positive or negative, it is valid here. The limit exists. So basically this slope, see this slope will be f of x plus h minus f of x by h only, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Limit exists means it has a derivative, right?
Hmm.
So now what you can say here is f of x plus h minus f of x, this part can be written as f of x plus h minus f of x by h into h. One second, let me think. This limit is existing, so this limit is existing, so what has to happen is this has to be 0 by 0, right? Something like that. Okay, or you can do it in the slightly opposite way. What you can do is, what do you want to prove? You want to prove that function is continuous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for proving function is continuous, what do I have to do? I have to do right hand limit should be equal to left hand limit should be equal to value of the function, right?
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what I have to do is limit of h tends to 0, f of x plus h minus f of x, right?
Yeah.
This value should be same as limit of h tends to 0, f of x minus f of x minus h, right?
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Then only the function, both sides limit are tending to the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So what we can say is this part can be written as by h into h, right? And since this derivative limit exists, this h tends to 0, the limit becomes 0, and this also by h into h. So this derivative limit exists, so both limits are same, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Basically it is saying that since this fraction has a limit, you can say that f of x plus h minus f of x tends to the same thing as this and minus this.
Yeah.
Why? Because I will create that fraction, this fraction, by
Yeah,
h into h and by h into h. So since both these limits exist and are equal by definition, since derivative exists, right?
Yeah.
So then multiplied by h and multiplied by h tends to 0, so both these limits are also equal, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you don't need to know the proof, but it is correct that if derivative exists, the function has to be continuous at x is equal to a. And the opposite is not true, right?
Yeah.
Now, let me think of what else is here. Hmm. Okay, so some results. So if fx and gx are both differentiable at x is equal to a, then fx plus minus gx, fx into gx, and fx by gx are all differentiable at x is equal to a, and this one is a special case if g of a is not 0. If g of a is not 0, this is also differentiable at x is equal to a. So basically what is it saying? It is saying if two known functions are two differential functions are combined, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In added, subtracted, multiplied, divided, right? Then it will, the resulting function will still be differentiable as long as this operation should be defined. G of a should not be 0, right? And for these there is no restriction, right?
Yeah.
So this is a straightforward thing. Then we come to, suppose fx is differentiable. Fx is differentiable at x is equal to a, and gx is not differentiable. Gx is not differentiable at x is equal to a. Okay. Then it is possible. Then it is possible for the product to still be differentiable. For the product fx into gx to be differentiable at x is equal to a. Now, how is that possible? We can construct an example for this as well. So what we can say is, let's take an example, fx is equal to x and gx is equal to mod x, right? Now you can clearly see that this function is always differentiable, but this is non-differentiable at 0, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. However, the product, if you look at phi x, is equal to actually x square if x is greater than equal to 0, and minus x square if x is less than 0, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
X into g mod x, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. Now you will be able to prove now that this function, if you draw the graph, it looks like this and like this, right? X
Yeah.
square and minus x square, right? Normal x square would have been like this, so minus x square would be like this, no?
Right. Hmm.
This graph has a common tangent at this point. I mean, you can prove differentiability by doing the definition also. So do right hand limit at 0. So right hand limit at 0, right hand derivative at 0, right? So you will do what? Limit of h tends to 0, f of 0 plus h. So f of h minus f of 0 divided by h, right?
Yeah.
Now f of h would be h square by h, limit is becoming 0, right? And let's do left hand derivative. Left hand derivative will be limit of h tends to 0, f of 0 minus f of minus h by h, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So this is 0 minus x, f of minus h will be putting minus h in this, right?
Yeah.
Again, it will be h square only. Minus
Mhm,
h square
mhm.
minus h square becomes plus h square. So h, it will also be 0, right?
Yeah.
So LHT is also coming 0, RHT is also coming 0, right?
Right. Right.
So this phi x function has become differentiable at 0, even though one of them was not differentiable at 0, right?
Yeah.
So this is a special thing, that it is still possible to be getting a differentiable function. Obviously, it is also possible to get non-differential functions. This is just one specific example, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It is very possible that because of this non-differentiability, you get a total non-differentiable function.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Similarly, third point is if fx and gx are both non-differentiable, again, it is still possible to get a product which is differentiable. Okay,
Right.
so let's take the example f of x is equal to mod of x and g of x is equal to also mod of x, right? Clearly non-differentiable, but product is always differentiable, because what is the product? It is always x square, no?
Yeah. Always.
Mod fx whole square will always be x square, doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
So these are just special cases that you need to be aware of, that there is no rule like fx and gx are both non-differentiable, so it has to be something. Okay, it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be, product can be anything. It can be differentiable also, and in some special cases it can be non-differentiable also,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then for example, then there is another special case. If fx and gx are both non-differentiable, then fx plus gx can still be differentiable, How? Again, we can take a very simple example. Take fx is equal to mod x, gx is equal to minus mod x. You will get a constant function when you add, right? But individual functions are non-differentiable.
Yeah.
Correct. Then suppose okay, okay, we don't need to do this. We don't need to do any special cases here, because what is the most important lesson in this chapter or in this section of the chapter is always proceed by definition. Like whenever in doubt, like don't make assumptions about differentiability or continuity. Whenever in doubt, check using the definition. So what are the definitions quickly again? For continuity, limit of x tends to c, f of x should be equal to f of c, right? And this basically means LHL is equal to RHL.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
This is your continuity at a point.
Right.
And for differentiability, the rule is simply LHD is equal to RHD. And how do you write LHD and RHD? At some point x is equal to c, let's say. So what you write for RHD is f of c plus h minus f of c divided by h, limit h tends to 0.
Right.
And
Yeah,
for
yeah.
LHD, what you will write is c minus h is the point. So I will start off with f of x,
See.
no, f of c,
Yeah.
and then I will say minus of f of c minus h by h.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is your LHD at c, and this is your RHD at c. Now, sometimes in problems, they will give you a number, right? Evaluate it at 2, right? Then you will put 2 plus h minus f of 2 by h, f of 2 minus f of 2 minus h by h, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is your definition for differentiability. This is your definition for continuity. And these definitions are what you need to apply at every stage. So if you are ever in doubt about some function, you need to apply this definition and it should work out.
Yeah.
Okay, so whatever result comes from there is the truth. So don't there are sometimes some clever tricks that you can do, but those are only valid in some MCQ type of questions. So sometimes what you can do, if you have a partially defined function, no piecewise defined function, right? So let's say this is g of x here, h of x here, right? Correct.
Yeah.
Let's say it is like this. So this is like a trick. This is a trick just to save some time. Okay, so don't use it indiscriminately, in the sense that don't say I tried this and it didn't work, so how can it be, right?
Yeah.
Right, it might not work in some cases. I'm just saying that sometimes, many times it will work. Okay, but ultimately this is the test of your truth. Like ultimately, to find differentiability at x is equal to a, you have to do this. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to write LHD, you have to write RHD and check whether they are same. But sometimes what you can do is you can, if I have to check this one, no, so what I will do is I'll differentiate this side and I'll differentiate this side. Okay,
Yeah.
and I'll find the value of the derivative near a. So I'll put g dash a and I'll put h dash a,
Right.
and I will see if they match or not. Right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, if it is differentiable, it should match both sides derivative, right?
Yeah.
So that is faster sometimes than doing this. But I mean, that is not guaranteed. Okay, you are already assuming that it is differentiable here, right?
Yeah.
While taking derivative itself, you have assumed differentiability, right?
Yeah.
So it will not always work. The real way to do it is always do the limit part, LHD, RHD, right? So fine. Now what we can do is start doing some of these questions, and we'll do one or two questions to just get the hang of what is supposed to be done here, and then you can work through the exercises. Exercises from the Samir Bansal book, I think, will be fine. So you have the book, no, LCD chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I will do is I will check a few questions here.
So should we open the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me see which question. Okay, let's look at the numericals at the end. So for example, a typical question of this chapter would be, okay, look at the numericals, exercise 4 basically, and question number 16. Okay, so it is saying if fx is equal to ln 1 plus mod of x plus b minus 2 mod of x plus 1 plus a tan inverse x plus 2 for minus 2 is less than x is less than 0, and b for x is equal to 0, and c plus 2 sine inverse root of gif of x plus e part fractional part, fractional part of x plus e power 2x minus e power ln. It is just they're just complicating the situation, but you don't have to be scared. That is the main thing here. Okay, no matter how complicated they make, you don't have to be scared and just do it. So by x square, okay, and this is from 0 is less than x is less than 2. Now it is saying it is derivable in minus 2 to 2, right?
Yeah.
This function is derivable in minus 2 to 2, and minus 2 to 2 is not closed, it is open, right? So at any inside points, it is derivable, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So basically at 0, it is differentiable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At 0, it is differentiable. So I have to say that this function, first of all, if it is differentiable at 0, it must be continuous at 0.
0.
Correct.
At x is equal to 0, it must be continuous. So you have two things actually. So saying that it is differentiable means that you have continuity conditions also true and differentiability conditions also true,
Yeah.
right? At x is equal to 0, right?
Right.
So first thing that we will look at is think about the function and think about what if it is continuous at x is equal to 0, right? Because continuity is easier to handle. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's think about the function x tends to 0 minus and x tends to 0 plus, right?
Right.
X tends to 0 plus, you have to put it in this function, and 0 minus will be this function, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct. So because it is 0 minus or just below 0, I can remove mod x and write it as minus x, right?
Minus x.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And just below 0, x plus 1 will be positive, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So this will be x plus 1 only. So my top part of the function looks like this: ln 1 minus x plus b minus 2 into x plus 1. That's it in the ln, plus a tan inverse x plus 2, right? And I have to put x tends to 0 minus here, right?
Yeah.
So x tends to 0 minus, when I put this is 0 only and this is 1, so it is b minus 2. So 1 plus b minus 2, right?
Right.
Correct. Plus a into tan inverse 0 is 0, so plus 2, right? Correct.
Yeah.
So you're getting ln b minus 1 plus 2, right? Correct.
Correct.
Right.
And that should be equal to your right hand limit and should be equal to the value of the function at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So this should be equal to b also, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. So if b is 2, notice it fits everything. See, if b is 2, it fits, no?
Yeah.
Correct. Because ln 1 plus 2, right?
Right, yeah, yeah.
So I am already guessing that b is equal to 2 will happen. I will check the other side to get the value of c also. Okay.
Yeah.
So other side, for other side, let's think when it is just 0 plus, right? Fractional part of x is same as x only, no?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it is already a fractional
Yeah.
part, right?
It's just.
So you have c plus 2 sine inverse root x, right? Plus e power 2x minus. Now this is e power ln something is just simply 4 times this, right?
Yeah.
Correct? Because e power ln something, no?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
And there is a minus 1 also, and this fractional part of x by 2 is also x by 2 only.
Yeah.
So this is just 2x minus 1, right?
Mm.
So now notice whole thing is divided by x square, right?
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, let's see the form of this limit. So for it is looking like c plus 2 sine inverse root x plus e power 2x minus 2x minus 1, right?
Yeah.
By x squared, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, fine. So first of all, this is sine inverse, this is 0, this is, see, it is 0 by 0 form, right?
Right.
It is 0 by 0 form. So one way to do it would have been L'Hopital. Also, I can see that e power 2x expansion will start with 1 plus 2x plus something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So 2x minus 1 is there to subtract that only.
Yeah.
Right. So there are multiple ways to do it. One, the best possible way would be to use the series expansions. Okay. So sine inverse x, if you know the series, then you will be able to do it very easily. However, sine inverse series is not something that everyone knows all the time.
Yeah.
So you might have to, I will do L'Hopitals because of that, because I will have to derive sine inverse x series, right?
Right.
So I will do L'Hopitals here to find this limit value, right?
Yeah.
By the way, the limit value should be equal to the b value, which is 2,
2, right? Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I will just do it now. We need a little bit of space here. Okay. So for L'Hospitals, I have to differentiate top part and bottom part, and we might have to do it 2 times here because denominator will not become 0. It will still remain 0
Yeah.
after 1, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that. So C plus 2 remains constant. Sine inverse root x. Sine inverse x differentiation is 1 by root over 1 minus x square. So 1 minus root x whole square is x. And now I have to differentiate root x, which is 1 by 2 root x, right?
Yeah.
How do I know sine inverse x differentiation? Everyone knows, no, how to differentiate this? No. How do I differentiate this?
We can assume it. We can write sine y is equal to x, and then
You
you
can write sine y is equal to x,
metric
and then differentiate here, and you say cos y dy by dx is
Yeah.
equal to 1, right?
yeah.
And now you have dy dx is 1 by cos y.
Hmm.
And since sine y is equal to x, cos y is root over 1 minus x square, right?
Right.
So this
Yeah.
is the differentiation of sine inverse x. dy by dx is 1 by root over 1 minus x square. So since it was sine inverse root x here, I did 1 by root over 1 minus root x square,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I differentiated the root x part because it is chain rule. So root
Yeah.
x differentiation will be 1 by 2 root x, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus now it will be e power 2x into 2 minus 2, right? By you will have 2x here,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Now it is, if you put 0 here, okay, 0 doesn't make sense here, no? Have I made some mistake or something? 1 second. Sine inverse root x.
So isn't that fraction part of x?
Fractional part of x, but that is x only.
Okay, yeah. Right.
That is not the problem.
Hmm.
Wait, am I making some mistake here? 0. C plus 2 sine inverse. C plus 2 sine inverse root x. Okay. Differentiability. See, it is possible to get this limit by doing series expansion of this, but I don't want to do it. I feel like this part will cancel this. So I want to think of some alternate way to get this. So right now I'm stuck on this expression. I have found b is equal to 2. So my overall thing here, b becomes 2. So this vanishes, right?
Yeah.
So I have 1 plus mod x and plus 8 tan inverse x plus 2, right?
Hmm.
So 1 plus mod x. So for differentiability, what can I say? For differentiability, okay. Okay, so the problem is that right now we are looking at 0 only. You can also look at x is equal to 1, no?
Yeah.
Correct. We can look at x is equal to 1 also, no? Because that is also in the interval, right?
Yeah.
It is supposed to be differentiable at x is equal to 1 also, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, why is that a problem? It is a problem because at x is equal to 1, fractional part changes value, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because it is crossing an integer, it will not be differentiable there, right?
Right. Yeah.
You understand? The fractional
Yeah.
part function will change values from zero, from something close to 1 to suddenly 0, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is happening here is, if you want to ensure derivative differentiability at x is equal to 1, this part and all is not a problem. This side is fine, okay?
Right.
But this side, you can split it into multiple functions. This is f of x plus this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And this function is non-differentiable at 1 because of this sine inverse root of fractional part. The root of
Right.
fractional part function is not differentiable, no? So composite function will not be differentiable,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The basic fractional part function itself is not differentiable, right? So
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
learned, no, that composite function is differentiable only if two things are happening.
Good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Inside part is differentiable and outside part is differentiable at that point, right?
Yeah.
So here inside part only is non-differentiable. So you have a non-differentiable function that is being added to another non-differentiable function here, right?
Yeah.
So fx plus gx, in this case, there is no cancellations in such a way. I mean, unless this part itself vanishes, right?
Yeah.
Unless this part itself vanishes, you will not have any differentiability ever.
Yeah.
So this part will vanish when c is equal to -2, which is what I was hoping for. So c is equal to -2 will make that sine inverse part itself vanish, and the function will become a much simpler function, which is just the e power 2x minus ln 4x by 2. And notice that here this fractional part is actually not a problem because x by 2 ranges from where to where? Zero to 1, no?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
See, x ranges from 0 to 2. So there is a problem here for x is equal to 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
But x by 2 ranges from 0 to 1,
0
no?
to 1. Yeah.
So there is no problem here because it is
Yeah.
not even touching 1, right?
Hmm.
So this part is going to remain e power 2x minus 2x minus 1, right?
Yeah.
There is
Yeah,
no
right.
issue here. So this is a differentiable component of the function. But
Right.
this was the problematic non-differentiable part, which for being derivative at 1, you have to have c minus 2.
Hmm.
So once you have that, you have c is equal to -2, b is equal to 2. Now the function itself is much simpler. It is e power 2x minus 2x minus 1 by x squared, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That is,
Right.
it is very easy to find the value of that limit because e power 2x expansion is 1 plus 2x whole square by 2 factorial and so on, right? So 1 plus 2x will get cancelled. So 2x whole square by 2 factorial will remain divided by x square. So this is 4 by 2. So 2, right?
Yeah.
4 by 2 will come. 2 will remain on top and x square will cancel. So 2 is the limit here,
Right.
right?
Right.
Which matches the 2 that was coming here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So everything is sorted here. Now we just have to get differentiability at x is equal to 0 or something here to check for the a value, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Or continuity also,
Yeah.
maybe you can check because ln 1 plus x plus 8. Okay. So let's check differentiability. So you have function here is ln 1 plus mod x plus a tan inverse x plus 2, right? And that was happening from -2 to 0, right?
0. Yeah.
minus 2 is less than x is less than 0. And what we can say is derivative from both sides at 0 must match, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So the other side of the 0 function was e power 2x minus 2x minus 1 by x squared, right?
Hmm.
So this is 0 is less than x is less than 2, right?
Yeah.
So function is differentiable at 0 also we can check. See, first we have checked differentiability at 1 to get the c is minus 2. Before that we checked continuity to get b is equal to 2, right?
2. Yeah.
And now again we are checking differentiability at, instead of x is equal to 1, we are checking it at x is equal to 0, right?
Yeah.
And for doing that, I will use the trick that I was talking about earlier. So here this function is basically 1 minus x plus a tan inverse x plus 2, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this function is this for positive 1. So what I will do is I'll just differentiate here and differentiate here and put the values at 0. They should match.
Yeah.
The left hand derivative should match this right hand derivative. So if I do left hand derivative here, it is 1 by 1 minus x into minus 1 and plus a by derivative of tan inverse x is 1 plus x squared, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is coming here, and the value of this is basically a by 1 minus 1 by 1, right? Near 0,
Right. Right.
right? So it is just a minus 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's find the value of this here. So this derivative will be just 2 quotient rule. So it will become top numerator differentiation is 2 e power 2x minus 2 multiplied by x square minus e power 2x minus 2x minus 1 multiplied by 2x divided by x power 4, right? Correct. Correct, no?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I'm supposed to put, okay, 0 value here. So okay, that doesn't come out very nicely. Okay, so maybe then instead of doing this, I will just do it properly here. So to find the derivative here, what I can say is I will do limit of h tends to 0, right? F of 0 plus h, which is just e power 2h minus 2h minus 1 by h square minus f of 0, right?
Hmm.
F of 0 is what? 2, middle one,
Yeah. Yeah.
by h, right? This is the limit.
Uh,
Correct. Now, actually, this limit is much more easier than doing the derivative like this, right? Because what I will get here is c e power 2h minus 2h minus 1 minus 2h square by h cube, right? Correct.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I
Yes.
can, now I can do the expansion again. E
Yeah,
power 2h
right.
will be 1 plus 2h plus 2h whole square by 2 factorial plus 2h whole cube by 3 factorial plus higher powers minus 2h minus 1 minus 2h square by h cube, right? 1 plus 2h gets cancelled here, and this is actually 4 by 2h square only, this also gets cancelled, right?
Yeah.
So you get 8 by 6 into h cube by h cube, right? 8 by 6, so which is 4 by 3. Higher powers will get cancelled because h will remain and that will become 0, right?
Correct.
You understand, when you
Right.
expand, no, higher powers don't matter. Till h cube you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything
Yeah.
gets cancelled nicely, and this limit is coming out to be 4 by 3. So right hand derivative, I have found by the definition itself, and it comes out to be 4 by 3, right? Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And left hand derivative I have found by actually differentiating and putting the values, and that came out as a minus 1, right? So a minus 1 is equal to 4 by 3 for being differentiable at 0. So a
Right.
should
Yeah.
be equal to 7 by 3, right? Now what you have to find is 9a square. So 9a square is 9 into 6, 49 by 9, right? So 49 plus b square, which is 4, plus c square, which is 4. So answer is 57.
Got it.
Okay, so basically this was a little complicated because you have to check 3-4 things. You have to check differentiability at 0, differentiability at 1, continuity at 0. Okay, all of these things you have to do. And while doing differentiability at 1, you have to notice that differentiability of at 1 will not be possible for that function, that sine inverse function, right? C plus 2 sine inverse root over GIF of x, it cannot be differentiable because x was going from 0 to 2, right? And this is a non-differentiable function because of the 1 point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that is a composite function where the inside part itself is non-differentiable, so overall is non-differentiable, right? Correct?
Yeah.
While the rest of the function was differentiable, even though there was one part which was looking weird, right?
Hmm.
Or x by 2, right? This
Yeah.
also had a fractional part, but x by 2 was ranging only from 0 to 1, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
This fractional part does not approach that discontinuity. So this fractional part is fine, actually. You understand? So the rest of the function was continuous, but this part was discontinuous. However, problem said that the whole function was differentiable, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for that to happen, this had to vanish. So that can vanish only if c is equal to -2,
Right, yeah.
right? So
Right.
lot of concepts were there, but that's good. While doing the exercise questions here, you will learn a lot. So try now the exercises. From beginning only you can try. Whatever questions are coming which are of continuity, differentiability, even limit questions. Notice that continuity differentiability is technically limits only, right? All of the calculations of continuity differentiability are done by doing limits.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So limits chapter is super important and you need to practice it a lot because everything is built up on that only. Okay. So now you can try the questions. We'll spend 1 or 2 weeks doing problems here. You can look at your Allen book. If you have the continuity differentiability book, you can even start solving that also. Okay. So try those things and we'll continue from this point. Tomorrow we'll do physics class. Physics will do electrostatics. We'll continue chapter 29 that we left off where we'll do exercises tomorrow from chapter 29. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay, sir.
just revise it a little bit and come. We'll do the exercises tomorrow.
We didn't do the dipole part. and all,
Dipole
right?
part I will cover after the exercise because it's a very small section. So
Okay, okay.
first we'll do majority of the exercises, then we'll do dipoles. So tomorrow just let me know what time everyone is free and all. I'm free in the morning also. I can do classes in the morning or even in the afternoon. So you can decide. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all for now then. I'll see you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Tomorrow,
Bye.
Bye, sir.
Yeah.
some